Thanks for joining us. On behalf of the Iowa Intermediary Network and Iowa Skilled Trades, we'd like to welcome you to the electrical worksite tour today. We have the great opportunity to go to a downtown Des Moines multifamily job site with Klein Electric. We will have the opportunity to talk with Kylie and Brandon. If you have questions or have comments, please utilize the chat and we'll get to those as soon as possible. So let's throw it down to Kylie and Brandon on the job site.
My name is Kylie Ayala. I'm a recruiter for Klein Electric. We are downtown Des Moines, Link Station. I think this is phase 2. We can look out the window and see some other apartment buildings down here that are finished. So currently we are standing in what will eventually be a fitness center. You can kind of envision.
We can't see anything, right? Why is that?
You broke it. The cuts on the side.
So I am the one talking on my own device, but Brandon is the one actually recording what's being looked at. Is that pinned to the top?
Yes, we see you. Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep.
I'm not hearing anything.
Kylie, I think we're getting some comments from the people joining, so I think you can keep going ahead. What we're seeing is you, and we're hearing you.
Okay. So we can kind of envision right here is where we would have some treadmill set up. Here's a TV. We've got what will eventually be a plug. Some of our guys have written on here what these will eventually be, but these are some low volt cables that'll eventually be an iPad mount. Another set of TVs for some treadmills. We can see here, these will all be outlets, and they will be every 12 feet, but we've put them in more often because we will have so many machines running in here. So out of this stage, we've got what is a common room or a theater room. It's still in the rough-in stage. We've got some low voltage cable in here. This will be eventually, yeah, this is a data room.
Kylie, do you want to do me a favor? And instead of us seeing your face, can you turn your camera out?
Yes.
And that may help.
Okay. We got 2 because Brandon's on here too. So we've got quite a bit of data coming from all the units. So these are some phone and some internet. This will all be trimmed out. Data number 1, data number 2. So this room will have to be ventilated well because it will get quite hot. We'll take you, this is just an elevator, but we'll take you down and show you how that's all wired when we get to the bottom floor. Here we've got, I might have to turn my flashlight on. But we've got some electrical panels that are not trimmed out yet. So this is what they look like when the wire's been pulled to them. And before they have all the breakers installed. So you can see up in here, we've got treadmill number 1. So each one of those treadmills has to have its own circuit. So that's why there's 3 panels for this like common area. And then when we step in here, this is just like a community bathroom. But this wire right here, when we have the drywall up, this will be something that we will bust a hole through, put a box in, like a cut-in box. We can pull this wire out, and that way it can be exactly center on the sink. If we install the box now, sometimes they'll be off center, and so it looks better to just have this wire zigzagged through the stud. So you can see we've got some temporary lighting. All our cords are tied up against the wall, so they're not a trip hazard. Our safety guy has been down on this job site a lot, making sure that it's clean and safe. And here we have a temporary power box. So I can't get inside, which is a good thing, but there's likely just a 100 amp breaker in there so that all these other trades can have power. And then did we want to go in what, like this first unit? That right here. So we've got a blueprint that we can show you. We'll while we're walking to our more finished out units, we'll pull that up for you guys to see. But what we've got here is a 3-bedroom unit in just the stud form. So the drywall is partially up, it's on the ceilings, but it's not on every single wall. You can look up and you can see that's called firecock. I don't know if Brandon can get it, but I can. Yeah, there we go. That is rated so that you don't have holes between units. And that makes sure that you can evacuate if there were ever a fire. That will be rated for 3 hours or so. So individually on each unit, they will have their own panel that they can turn off different circuits on. So we're seeing right here. And then downstairs, there is no actual disconnect in here. You can't turn power off to the entire unit here. You'd have to do that downstairs. But let's say your kitchen trips or your microwave, that's what this circuit is. That's where it'll be landed on a breaker after the rest of the house has been trimmed out. So we've got some boxes here. These will be plugs. And up at the top, we've got a box rated for a fan. It's likely that they won't have a fan installed, but they are required to have a box that's rated for a fan in case at any point somebody wanted to add a fan. We can come back in here and see the big master bedroom. So here we've got where they would assume the TV would go. This is TV and internet. Here's your wire for your plug. You can kind of follow those as they go through the ceiling and through each stud. So all these guys will all be on one circuit, the lights and the plugs. This wire is stubbed out because it will be a plug that's likely, without looking at the plans, this is likely to be something that's in a cabinet. So we will have to cut this plug in. And we got the stub out for 2 sinks. And if I had to guess, I would say that there's wires zigzagged in between this stud and this stud for some vanity lights. So if you want to share the blueprint, I'll take you up to a more complete unit.
So right now I am seeing on my screen the blueprint because I pinned it, but participants, if you want to see the blueprint that Kylie is talking about, you need to pin the Iowa Intermediary Network. And you can view that blueprint as well. So you can have Brandon and the Iowa Intermediary Network pinned.
Just one, I think it was, or was it two? Neither do I. Nope, it's this one. We came from over there. Hi. So drywall is still wet on this side. We can kind of peek in here on some of these units. And then after you guys get a good look at the blueprint that is pinned, we'll get past these drywallers who are currently working in some of these units. And we'll show you kind of a before and after of the units when it's roughed in versus when it's in the trim stage. All right, if you want to unpin that blueprint, one farther down. Okay. So now we come into a unit that is, everything's trimmed out except for the electrical. So what you've got in here is just, we're 1 8-hour day away from finishing this house. So you can see the drywall's painted, there's trim up. The floors are done. We're waiting on some countertops. And what we'll have is, we'll pass out all the devices. And you'll see this box is a TV and I assume an internet, but it has some paint over the top of it. And this will be an outlet for your dinette area. So you can get in here, you can see this will be a switch. It'll be a single pole switch. There's just 2 wires in there. And this is the next stage of a job site that you would be on. So when I worked out in the field, this is what I did. I was in our residential department. Oh, we can look at that wire. I was in our residential department and I trimmed houses. So here's that cabinet. Open it. It doesn't open. Anyways, there's that wire that was behind that, that was stubbed out in that last unit. It'll be behind here and then you can cut it in right there so that you've got a plug. Again, you'll cut a hole right up there. And then you've got an outlet on both sides of your sink. Where is that electrical panel in here, do you think? It's usually in the bedroom. Opposite of the other one, though. I'm trying to show you. Here's the data panel. It's just in a closet. And there's the panel behind that door. So the next stage for this is it will be trimmed out after all of the devices, all the lights are installed, and it'll have a cover.
Kylie, question for you. Can you describe the length of time between like the starting of the project that we saw downstairs to the finishing of the project upstairs?
So it actually goes by pretty quickly. Can you guys hear me? I know there's a pretty big fan running. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, you're good.
Let me get on the other side of this guy. So I actually have a schedule here. Hubble keeps our trades pretty well in line. This is for the trim side, the dates that they kind of have planned. So we have to wait for those other trades to be able to finish our end. Like on a house side, it might take 3 months. You'll rough it in, you'll let the drywallers come in, the painters come in, the guys who do the trim. 3 months later, a house will be ready. On an apartment site, it might take a bit longer because you have to work around a couple other trades as well. We don't need fire alarm on a residential project, and you do need that on the trim side. So it might take 6 months to go from the rough inside to the finished drywall side.
And so another question in the chat was how many people are on a job site at one time?
So we have 35 multifamily guys, and they spread out in groups of seven or 8. And that'll be usually how many guys you have on a crew. On our residential side, it's just groups of 2, sometimes groups of 3. Our commercial department, similar, anywhere from 3 to 7, depending on what stage of the project you're at. But you'll have at least one foreman, one person who's got a license, and then everyone underneath him is an apprentice. So we're gonna go find Isaac, who is the foreman on this project. We're gonna have him show us the elevator that he's currently working on. Ready for us? Okay. So there's nothing pulled into it yet. There's your big pipes boxes. This big guy right here will have a bunch of connections in it. This is your motor control. So this will be where your elevator is powered. There'll be a couple lights up top too. It's pretty simple. This is the bigger stuff.
Kylie, can you talk a little bit about the voltage, you know, as far as like an outlet compared to the different ones used for that elevator? Because obviously it takes a little more power with the elevator.
So I can't see, I don't, since I did residential, I don't know quite what the size of the wire is, and Isaac just took off. I can tell you it's significantly bigger. I never had to install anything to this size, but just based right here alone on the size of that, it's a big wire that's gonna be going through there, or a bunch of wires. Whereas this yellow wire is 12 gauge wire. That would be something that you would see in your kitchen. Do you want to talk? There's a question in the chat about the size of wire that you would need and the voltage for what are you pulling in there?
So right now it's aluminum 250, and then to go to their equipment, you have to change it to copper 3/0.
Okay. So much bigger than the 12 gauge wire you've got in the ceiling.
Yeah.
Here, Brandon, you want to go in?
So Kylie, there's a question in the chat of how long does it take to install an elevator like that?
How long have you been working on this, Isaac?
Our part just this morning, so 4 hours. The elevator guys, the last one, it took them about 3 weeks.
Wow.
Might be a little longer because they're still not done. They had to set scaffolding up inside to mount the rails. They have an I-beam that sits across the top for the chain hoist, and then they bring that down, run their cart, and we get this stuff running.
Okay.
All their cabling, all their wiring, all that stuff. So right now that one is technically operational temporarily. It just won't go back to the floor, the first floor, and you can't call it. You have to, whatever floor it's on, you have to go in, hold the button, and then tell it where you want it to go. But
Okay.
It'll work for construction purpose until we finish the other half. So.
Then Isaac just finished some services, right?
Yes.
Finished some services for these units. How long did this take you?
This side alone took us about 2 weeks.
Wow.
Not counting pulling the SCR to it.
So Kylie, can you explain to the students what we're looking at?
Isaac, do you want to explain that?
So this piece is the main switch, the main breaker for, this is only half of the building service. It's the main switch that feeds all of these meters. So normally on a house, yours is a lot smaller and it's just one little meter. And it's all in one piece. There is no breaker for it. Mid-Am controls that. Here, that way if there's an issue, they have a main breaker. So if they needed to shut this entire service off, they have a way to disconnect this. And then each one of these meters has its own breaker that's tied to the unit. So if there's something wrong in a unit and they need to shut it off, they can come down here, open that up, shut the unit off. Otherwise, the meters work exactly like they do on a house. It just reads how much you're using.
And I don't know if the kids can see this, but can you explain what this is?
So right now we have furnaces running up on some of the floors in some of the units to get them some permanent heat instead of temp heat. In order to do that, we have the panel covers on, so nobody else is allowed in those but us. The ones that are off, though, to keep them off, since this is energized and anybody can be in this room, we have cabling that keeps these shut. And then I have a lock with only one key tied to my name. So if anybody needs in these, they have to call me to get into them. That way, nobody else, while we're working on it, can open that, turn it on, and shock somebody upstairs.
So that's called a lockout tag out system. It looks like there's a couple. Thank you, Isaac. What do we got on this side?
This is what feeds the house, some of the two elevators, and that part correlates with the generator. That's the backup for one of the elevators.
Okay.
So same thing, another house meter, CT cabinet, which is mid-am's half. So we pull power into it, make it up. I can't open it because mid-am has their lock on it, but inside is their monitoring system that's tied to that meter. And this CT feeds the MDP, it's a main distribution panel. So this feeds all of both elevators. It feeds all of my house panels. The house panels are what feed your hallways, common areas, all the stuff that's not tied to a tenant to pay for. That's whoever owns the building for them to do. So each one of these is fed all off of that. That's your main breaker. Feeds all those. This is the transfer switch, which is also fed off of this breaker right here. That's what actually runs that elevator way down in the corner. The reason we need that one is it's tied to this generator that's out here. So if they ever lose power, this automatically transfers over from this power here. They lose that inside, it'll transfer automatically. It sounds like a big thunk when the generator kicks on, and it'll restore power back to the elevator.
How many seconds does it take to do that?
It depends. When we did the one at the last building, it takes about 10, 15 seconds.
Okay.
But just enough time for the elevator and the generator to get running, and then just make sure that that's actually doing what it's supposed to, and then it'll transfer everything over in there.
Very cool.
And just house panel, which they'll have to wrap that with sheetrock before it's over, cover up our wires. But,
Thank you, Isaac.
Kylie, can you talk about when you were talking about like the gauge of wire in your kitchen, you said something about a 12 gauge. Can you explain what that terminology means?
So there's different sizes of wire, and it's how much, like the capacity of the wire and how much heat it can hold. So you don't want to bring like a space heater and put it on a 14 gauge wire, which would be a 15 amp circuit. Your space heater is going to pull more than that, and that's why you see a lot of house fires in the wintertime. You're putting your space heater on the wrong size of wire. It doesn't have the capacity to hold as much heat. So that yellow wire that you see, you can turn around and see, it's just holding this wire up, but this will be a light. That would be something that you would have a 20 amp breaker on, and that would be able to hold the wire itself is larger, so it would be able to hold more heat, disperse it correctly, which that's what happens with electric. That's why this room would likely be hot if all of this was running, and you'd need to have it ventilated correctly.
So Kylie, can you talk about the PPE you are wearing or required to wear on a job site?
Yes, so I've got my high vis vest on, safety glasses, hard hat. I've got boots that go above my ankle. Personally, I'd like to have something that wasn't as slick, but it's not required. Just got cowboy boots on. These are all required to be on bigger job sites. Actually, even our small job sites are required. Some of the smaller trades don't have to be like on our residential sites. They're not required by a builder, but our company actually does require us to have high vis, safety glasses, and hard hats at all times.
As far as electricians, about how many electricians are required to be on a job site?
So the only person that's required to be on site is a foreman. So that would be somebody who's holding his journeyman's license, his or her, excuse me. And to pull permits on a job site, you have to have a master electrician with a contractor's license to be able to pull permits, but he doesn't actually have to be on site. So that would be, for us, that'd be Shane Klein. He has his contractor's license, and he oversees all of the jobs that we have permits pulled for. And then on site, you only need one foreman who's got his journeyman's license. And then anytime you add people underneath him, you have got apprentices, then you have to have a ratio of people holding a license to apprentices. And I apologize, I don't actually know what that ratio is. We, on the residential side, we tried to stay at 1 to 1. Sometimes it doesn't always work. Sometimes it's 1 to 2, which I think that is our max.
And another question in chat, when would this project be scheduled to finish?
I think they're pushing to have this one finished quickly. So I know our guys are coming in this weekend with a crew of 15, and they're gonna try and finish out the last set of units that we walked through that had hardwood floor, and get that top section of of units that are ready. They're gonna get them done. But something like this might still need another 3. I think they're scheduled to be done in end of December, early January. So another 3 weeks.
Wow, that's great to know that they can do a project like that so quickly. So
Yeah.
in a typical day, how many hours are you on the job site?
So a typical day, your guys are going to show up to the job site at 7 and they're going to leave at 3:30. So an 8-hour day with a half an hour lunch. Anytime that we have any overtime available, you might work 10s instead of 8s. So you might work 7 to 5, 7 to 5:30, something like that. Our residential department has been busy every single week, every single weekend. They're on 10s and they're working every Saturday. Our multifamily department, they can opt in to working with our residential department. They're similar in how the units are trimmed out, even though obviously the services on an apartment complex are much bigger than they are on the residential side. But our multifamily guys can come and help that department. And that's the beauty of having a bigger company, that they've got multiple departments. But somebody who's just 3 guys deep, they might only have, they might not have the ability to work overtime if there's only a couple of them, one with a license, one with a contractor's license, and like the guys that you'd see that only have a couple people on their crew. So typical work week, you might work anywhere from 40 to 60 hours in a week, depending on how busy you are.
And is electricians, are they 12 months out of the year, or is there a break time when it's a little slower?
So we see a slow down with every trade. You know, if you can't break ground, you can't build anything. But Klein and most of the other trades that I see around here, most of the other electrical companies as well, they stay busy 12 months out of the year. Our service department never lets up because those houses are already built and they need attention. And most of the time, our bigger projects, they're already going. So you'll stay busy through the winter. Sometimes our houses slow down. I haven't seen that in the last 3 years, though.
Are there any other questions from students or educators to ask Kylie? And I'm going to throw it back to you if there are no other questions.
Well, welcome back. Let me change my background here. I had it changed so everybody could see the blueprint. If you have some questions that you would like to ask, go ahead and put those in the chat. Otherwise, how about what is the best part of your job, Kylie?
Mine, when I was out in the field, I loved seeing the finished project. My helpers used to always say, oh, it's the little things. I'd open up a set of lights and they'd be brown instead of silver. And I would just love to be able to see how they would look when they got up on the wall. Currently, as a recruiter, I really do think that this is the best part of my job, being able to work with youth, the interns that I have that are still in school. I really love working with people and helping people. When I was out in the field regularly, now I just work, I go work for Klein on Saturdays. Definitely the trim and the finish product was my favorite part about being on a job site.
And we have a couple more questions in chat, Kylie. Do you know what a journeyman makes an hour? And are you trained extensively for safety situations?
So for safety, yes, we require at Klein, we require that you sit through a 4-hour safety orientation with our safety director, Jameson, who some of you may have met last week. If you are going to do anything underground, there's an extra 1.5 hours of safety that you're required to do. And at some point in your career on underground, you will be sent with, I think United Rentals is the one who puts it on, but I think I may be mistaken, but they have like an 8-hour day that you go through with trench safety. We require you when you're in school, Klein requires you to finish your OSHA 10 by the time you are done with your 4th year of school, or excuse me, Klein requires you to be done in your 1st year of school. ABC requires you to be done within your first 4 years. So we just want you to be safer earlier. We don't want you to wait until your 4th year. You're out on job sites for 4 years before you ever look through OSHA 10. We want you to go through in that first year that you're with us. An average journeyman, it will depend on what field you're in. A commercial foreman, a commercial journeyman will make more money than a residential journeyman. But you're still going to make anywhere from $40,000 to $100,000 a year. That translates roughly, I think our guys on the residential side, when they have their journeyman, their minimum, their starting pay is 24. And on a commercial site, it's closer to $30
And do you
an
want
hour.
Okay, can you explain the difference between a residential and a commercial electrician?
It's just the amount, like, so this that you're looking at right here, a multifamily is kind of somewhere in between a commercial and residential. So they still have wood studs on a multifamily site, which is what you're going to see on the residential site. And a commercial, you're going to have all metal studs, steel studs. So you're going to be pulling a lot of, on a multifamily and a residential, you're going to be pulling a lot of Romex, which this is what Romex is, that wire right there. And on a commercial job site, you're going to have this. This is a pipe. And you'll actually, so here you've got Romex that's pulled in between each one of these boxes. But on a commercial site, you're just going to have the wire. It will not have this yellow coating on it. You'll just pull the size of wire that you need to the box itself. So I know that there's a lot bigger differences than just that, but like the most simple basic level when it comes to wire, that's what the difference is what you're allowed to pull.
Great information. And I see that Melissa put Brandon and Kylie's emails in the chat. So feel free to reach out with any questions that maybe weren't answered today. One more question was, what is the different levels of pay? I don't know if you can kind of go through that, Kylie, for the students.
Okay, so when you first start your apprenticeship, the Department of Labor requires that you are paid so much, and every 1,000 hours that you complete on the job, so your OJTs are on the job training, every 1,000 hours that you complete, the Department of Labor requires that you get a raise. So during your first year, you are required to make, and excuse me if I'm a couple cents off, but I think you're required to make anywhere from $12 to $13.30, and then every 1,000 hours you get 50 cents to $1 raise. And there is a minimum, and I'm sorry that I don't know that. I know once you get to 8,000 hours, which is where you are at the end of your 4th year of school, they're requiring you to make $19.80 an hour. So that's the minimum that you can make through school. When you're at a merit shop, a non-union shop, you will end up being paid on how well you're doing the job. So you're not going to be making that base minimum if you are eager to learn and prove yourself.
What's the maximum we've seen before?
And I can only think of residential, but like a residential guy who's got his journeymans and is killing it on the housing side might make $28 an hour. And that on the residential side, that's low, or that's high, but that's low for an actual journeyman who's carrying his license.
Is there any difference in pay between union versus non-union?
I don't know what it is. I imagine that the Department of Labor, who has both, they're probably pretty similar in how many hours you're going through. It's once you get your license, I don't know what the difference is.
Thank you. So how much of your work, and this is a question in chat, is outside versus inside? Obviously, it's a little chilly out today. So kind of give some idea of how much you work inside and how much you work outside.
So you have to be comfortable with being in the elements, because even if you are like me and you don't like the cold and you want to be, I was just a trim electrician. Our company was big enough that I didn't have to rough in a house that I was gonna trim. So I was inside with heat most of the time, but even on houses that I came to, if the gas isn't trenched in, if the power is not been pulled in by mid AM, then you're just out in the elements. You might be out of the wind, but you're still going to be in the cold. And there are fixtures that need to be installed outside of a house that maybe you have to spend 4 hours on, even if you have a heated house. This particular not unit, but this particular job site, most of everything inside is heated and it feels okay inside. But like if I were working on these right here, I mean, I'm pretty much outside. It's not heated in here at all.
Are there any additional questions? Please keep them coming, students. These are great questions. We appreciate the time that Kylie and Brandon are staying on longer, and we appreciate your time. We felt that this was so important to keep students on longer. I know we were supposed to end at 10:30, but these questions are important for you all to find your career path. So are there any other questions that either you can unmute yourself or that you would like to put in the chat? Or Kylie or Brandon, any other words of wisdom for these students as they're trying to figure out their pathway?
I would say if you have a scholarship to go to college, or if you are choosing to go to college because you want to be a teacher or a lawyer, I know you're probably not on this particular virtual panel if you're wanting to be anything else other than, you know, getting into the trades. But if there's a reason that you have to go to school, great, go to school. Otherwise, you could, somebody in the last panel had said he spent 5 years going to college and he wound up with around $200,000 in debt. Then when he was finished with his 5-year apprentice, because he went through the union, when he was finished with his 5-year apprenticeship, he was making money through the entire thing and wound up, I think he said he had somewhere close to $300,000 over the course of that 5 years. So when you calculate it, you can either finish college with $200,000 in debt, or you can start school, you know, apprenticeship is still going to school, and you can be making money in those same 5 years. So there's lots of reasons to go to school, but apprenticeship is still learning. You're just learning on the job and making money at the same time.
Awesome. And I see that Amy has that reminder of that we will be having more skilled trade sessions starting again in January with panels and worksite tours. And so we want you definitely to come back. So definitely check out the iowain.org site and the Connections Lab for those information. Also, one more question in here. How do you know if the company is union or not when you're looking at working for a company?
So you can take, I know on the union side, you can take like an apprenticeship evaluation. And then when you get called into the union will actually be who places you with a company. On the merit side, there is a list. And I think last week somebody had sent that list out. So I think that it's available if somebody wanted it, but there's a list of merit shops that you can go in, and you have to be you have to apply and be accepted on there before you can start your apprenticeship through a merit shop.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry, Ann, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us on behalf of Iowa Intermediary Network and Iowa Skilled Trades. We'd really like to thank Kylie and Klein Electric for allowing us this worksite tour, the behind the scenes that even pandemic or not, we probably would not have had the opportunity to have this great opportunity. So thank you so much for your time today. We've mentioned some awesome websites for everybody to check out. If you want more information on virtual work-based learning opportunities such as the one you're seeing today, make sure you go over to iowain.org to the Iowa Intermediary Network's website. If you want to connect with Brandon and the Iowa Skilled Trades, make sure you check out their website. We've also talked about the earnandlearniowa.gov website if you're looking for those registered apprenticeships. So again, thank you so much for everybody for participating today, and we hope you'll join us for more events. Thank you.